Was a member of the Army for 3 years. He joined right after he graduated from high school in 1961. Gordon shared with us his experience in the Army, as well as his memories of events that marked history.
First of all, I was right out of high school. At that time, did not have the means or really want to go right into college, and it was kind of expected for me and for my brothers that we would serve in the military after high school. It was kind of a family thing, and we were kind of expected to serve. Yeah, I knew some friends that were drafted. Was what the word you're looking for. I think that I was an enlisted man. I had to go in for 3 years. If you were drafted, you didn't have a choice, but you only had to go in for 2 years. You were drafted, and yeah, I had numerous friends and relatives that were drafted in the Army, and some of them tried getting out, by getting married at the last minute, or other such means, trying to stay in college, and they were exempt as long as they were in college, and some of them, depending on their draft board, were exempt if they were married. So I think there was a lot of early marriages. When you go in the Army, you took a battery of tests, and they saw what you had aptitude for as well as skills for. And then following basic training, everyone went on to AIT, which was Advanced Individual Training. And I was lucky in one respect that I scored well, evidently, on some tests, and I ended up going to a good school, and and then my job came after that.
And what school did you go to?
I went to cryptography school down in Georgia, and then from there I became a cryptographer first at the Pentagon, and then I had an opportunity to go overseas to Paris, France, and work at the embassy there as a cryptographer.
Cryptography is the decoding of messages. During the Vietnam War, cryptographers were very useful because of the decoded communications being sent around the world.
The first training that everyone goes through is basic training, and you're there for, they tell you 8 weeks, it turns into 10 weeks. And that was tough. That's they want to separate you from everything at home and that, and you learn to follow orders real fast, and don't question them, and don't question authority. And it was physically, it was very demanding. Our company had a lot of airborne rangers as cadre, and so our company was especially tough, I think, because I'd see other companies there during basic, and they'd ride out to a rifle range, and our company would go out there with packs on their backs. We usually were got to wake up at our company. It was usually about 4:30 every morning, and it wasn't your mother there shaking you saying time to get up. It was a drill sergeant yelling, and you had like 5 seconds for your feet to hit the ground. And so then you got dressed whatever the uniform of the day was, and made your bunk up and reported for formation, and there they inspected you every morning, made sure your boots were shined, etc., etc. You were shaven, and you went to breakfast in the mess hall, and you had so much time to eat, and once you got out of there, then it was off to either to a rifle range or physical training or to a class learning about something, and your day pretty much went that way until maybe 5 o'clock that night, 5 or 6 that night, and then you'd come in for the evening meal, and then you either sometimes you'd have night things, or they'd come roust you out for what seemed like no reason and make you get in formation and go running or something. It was always, they always tried to keep you unaware of what was going to go on, so you could never just say, oh boy, breast, and I was but it was good training. You'd learn to snap to when they yelled at you.
Although unusual, the troops in basic training did have the occasional free time and time off. Some soldiers had 1 weekend off every 3 to 4 weeks, but Gordon's team had 1 weekend off in the 10 weeks that they were in basic training. When the troops got time off during the day, they generally used it to shine their boots, prepare their uniforms for the next day, write letters home, and sleep, anticipating the lack of sleep they would get that night.
Sure, there's a lot of stories. You mentioned Tom Olcott was a helicopter pilot for the Marine Corps, and he related to me that one time he was up flying his helicopter, and he'd actually turned the controls over to his co-pilot, and what they were doing was they had a couple of Vietnamese regular Army guys with them, and they were dumping out brochures, which was big during the war. They used to fly over and they'd dump out all this propaganda brochures for the villages and what have you, and they were assigned every day an altitude to fly at, like let's just say 3,500 feet. And so Tom said they were up at 3,500 feet and cruising along, and he turned the controls over to the co-pilot, and he was just sitting there watching things, and all of a sudden a fixed wing aircraft, just a little Piper Cub type aircraft, was coming right at him. And he said he didn't have time to say anything to the co-pilot or anything. He just grabbed every lever that makes the helicopter go up, and it was our Air Force plane ran right into him, and they crashed, of course, and went down and landed on the side of a rocky cliff type thing. And I was afraid the helicopter was going to blow up, so I actually had to jump out of it about 20 feet. Ended up breaking his leg, and then the medevac teams got in and airlifted him out. That wasn't combat per se, they were in a combat area, but it wasn't enemy fire. But things like that were happening all the time, where our own troops were injuring one. I think at that time during the war, when we get carried away with body counts, that kind of stood out, there was a period in time there where the news every night would give a body count of how many of our soldiers were killed and how many of the confirmed deaths the North Vietnamese had. I think that kind of got to everybody. I could never understand why the news media got hung up on that. Well, it was supposedly to stop the spread of communism, and I think we kind of lost sight of that too. No one, I don't think to this day I've heard a good explanation as to why we should, for that matter, why we shouldn't have been in Vietnam.
Gordon has lived through many events in history. To us, his life is history, and his stories only enhance our understanding of the past.